But when I started counting, the numbers didn't add up. First, I counted 1,800 people, then 5,000, then 11,000.
Before we start, if you're into stories about ordinary jobs that discover extraordinary things, the mundane work that uncovers impossible truths, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a like if you want more content about people who see what others can't. And seriously, I want to know where you're watching from and what time is it there. Comment below. Now, what I'm about to tell you happened during the 2010 census in a small town in Kansas, and it's the reason I don't work for the Census Bureau anymore. It's also the reason I can't ever go back to Smith Center, Kansas. Let's get into it. My name is David Park, and in April 2010, I was a temporary census enumerator for the U.S. Census Bureau. It was decent work for someone fresh out of college with a sociology degree and no real job prospects. The pay was okay, the hours were flexible, and the job was simple. Go door to door, count people, record data, help America know how many citizens it had. Basic, straightforward. Nothing that could possibly go wrong. I was assigned to north central Kansas, rural counties with small populations, the kind of places where everyone knew everyone and strangers were noticed immediately. My supervisor, a woman named Linda Chen, who'd been with the Bureau for 20 years, gave me my assignment on April 12th. Smith Center, she said, handing me a thick folder. Population 1,665 according to the 2000 census. Should take you about a week to do a complete door-to-door count. It's the county seat of Smith County, so there's a courthouse, a few shops, nice people. Straightforward work. I looked at the map. Smith Center was located in the geographic center of the contiguous United States, literally the middle of nowhere. The town was laid out in a standard grid pattern. Neat streets, numbered avenues, everything organized and predictable. Any issues I should know about? I asked. None, Linda said. Smith Center is one of the easier assignments. Low crime, high cooperation rate, very civic-minded community. They take pride in participating in the census. You shouldn't have any problems. She was wrong. I arrived in Smith Center on April 15th, 2010. The town looked exactly like the photos in my briefing folder. Main Street with shops, residential neighborhoods spreading out in all directions, farmland surrounding everything. Population 1,665, maybe 2,000 if you counted the surrounding rural areas. Small town America. Quiet. Normal. Boring. I checked into the Old Dutch Mill Motel on the edge of town. A small place with maybe a dozen rooms, run by an elderly couple who seemed delighted to have a guest. The man at the desk, who introduced himself as Harold, was friendly and talkative. "Census worker?" he said, noticing my Bureau ID badge. "Good timing. We've been expecting you. Town's been preparing, making sure everyone knows to cooperate. You'll find folks here are very helpful." "That's good to hear," I said. "I'm hoping to complete the count by the end of the week." Harold smiled. "Oh, it won't take that long. Smith Center's not that big. You'll probably be done in 3 days." I took my key and settled into room 7. The motel was clean, but dated. Furniture from the 1970s. A small TV with basic cable. A window overlooking the parking lot. Everything you'd expect from a small-town Kansas motel. That night, I reviewed my materials. The census is methodical. You go block by block, house by house, recording every resident. Name, age, relationship, basic demographic information. The 2000 census had recorded 1,665 people in Smith Center proper. My job was to verify that number had increased or decreased, and by how much. I estimated 1,700 people, maybe 1,800. Small towns like this were usually stable or slightly declining, nothing dramatic. I started work the next morning at 9 a.m. My first assigned block was on East Court Street, just north of the courthouse. Residential area, older homes, well-maintained. The kind of neighborhood where people still knew their neighbors and kids still played in the streets. I knocked on the first door. A woman in her 50s answered, smiled when she saw my bureau ID. "Census," she said brightly. Come in, we've been expecting you." She gave me all the information willingly. Her name was Patricia Morrison, age 52, lived here with her husband Tom, age 54. No children at home anymore. 2 people in this household. "Have you lived here long?" I asked, making conversation while I recorded the data. 30 years, Patricia said. "Moved here in 1980. Raised our kids here. Never wanted to leave. Smith Center is special, you know. People here take care of each other. It's a real community." "That's nice to hear," I said. "Do you know your neighbors well?" "Oh, yes," Patricia said. "The Hendersons next door, the Kowalskis across the street, the Chens 2 houses down. Everyone knows everyone. That's what makes this place home." I thanked her and moved to the next house. Same pattern. Friendly people, willing cooperation, detailed information. I worked my way down East Court Street, then turned onto North Main. Every house, every resident, all recorded meticulously. By noon, I'd covered 3 blocks, counted 47 people. At this rate, I'd easily finish the entire town in 3 or 4 days, just like Harold had predicted. I broke for lunch at a diner on Main Street, the Buffalo Rome Cafe, according to the sign. Inside was busy with the lunch crowd. I grabbed a seat at the counter, ordered a burger. The waitress, a young woman maybe my age, smiled as she took my order. "You're the census guy, right?" Patricia Morrison called ahead. "Said you'd probably come by, small-town life. Everyone knew everything within hours." "That's me," I said. "I'm David." "Emma," she said. "Welcome to Smith Center. How's the count going?" "Good so far. Everyone's been really helpful." "That's Smith Center for you," Emma said. "We take care of our own. And that includes making sure we get counted properly." She brought my burger, and I ate while reviewing my morning data. 47 people in 3 blocks. Average household size 2.1 people. Numbers that match the national averages perfectly. Everything by the book. I paid my bill, left a tip, and headed back out to continue the count. That's when I noticed something odd. I'd already counted the 3 blocks on East Court Street that morning. Documented every house, every resident. But as I walked back past those blocks to get to my next assignment, I saw people I didn't remember seeing before. A man mowing his lawn at a house where Patricia Morrison had told me, "The lot next door is empty. The old Wilson place, been vacant for 5 years." A woman getting her mail at a house I'd recorded as unoccupied, for sale. Kids playing in a yard where I'd been told no children live on this block anymore. I checked my notes. Patricia Morrison, 123 East Court. Empty lot at 125. But now there was clearly a house at 125 and someone was mowing the lawn. I walked over. The man with the lawnmower looked up, smiled, wiped sweat from his forehead. "Help you?" he asked. "I'm with the Census Bureau," I said. "I was here this morning doing the count on this block. I don't think I caught this house." "Oh, you must have missed us," the man said. "I was probably at work." "I'm James Wilson. Live here with my wife Sarah and our 2 kids." "Wilson," I said. "Any relation to the old Wilson place?" He looked confused. "Old Wilson place?" "This is the Wilson place. My grandfather built this house in 1952. We've been here for 3 generations. I looked at my notes again. Patricia Morrison had specifically said the lot was empty. Had been empty for 5 years. But this man was standing in front of a house that looked like it had been here for decades. Well-maintained, lived in, real. "Can I get your household information?" I asked, trying to stay professional. "Sure," James said. He gave me the details. James Wilson, 45. Sarah Wilson, 43. 2 children. Michael, 16, and Jennifer, 14. 4 people total. I recorded it all, thanked him, and moved on. But something was wrong. I'd been methodical this morning. I'd gone to every house on this block. I hadn't missed this house. I couldn't have. It was right there, right in sequence with the others. I decided to recanvass the 3 blocks I'd already done, just to make sure I hadn't made a mistake. By 5 p.m., I'd recounted the 3 blocks on East Court Street. This morning, I'd counted 47 people. This afternoon, I counted 73 people. 26 additional people. In the same houses I'd already visited. But when I knocked on doors the second time, I found people who insisted they'd been there all morning. People who couldn't understand why I hadn't counted them the first time. At the Morrison house, Patricia answered the door again. "Back so soon?" she said, still friendly but slightly confused. "I need to verify your household count," I said. "This morning, you told me it was just you and your husband, Tom." "That's right," Patricia said. "Me and Tom." "What about your son?" I asked, looking at my afternoon notes. "Michael Morrison, age 19. Patricia's face went blank for a moment. Then she smiled. "Oh, Michael." "Yes, of course. He's away at college most of the time. I forgot to mention him this morning. Sorry about that." "Is he here now?" I asked. "He's upstairs in his room," Patricia said. "Do you need to talk to him?" "If possible," I said. Patricia called upstairs. A young man came down, 19 years old, looked just like the photo on the wall that I definitely hadn't noticed this morning. He confirmed his information. Michael Morrison, 19, college student, temporarily residing at home. I added him to my count and moved on. But here's the thing. When I'd been at the Morrison house this morning, I'd spent 10 minutes talking with Patricia. We discussed her children, both grown and moved away, she'd said. No one living at home except her and Tom. Now there was a son, a room full of his belongings, photos on the wall, evidence of his existence everywhere. Had I just missed it this morning? Had Patricia forgotten to mention him? Or had Michael Morrison not existed this morning? I worked until dark, recounting blocks I'd already finished. Every time I went back to a house, I found more people. Not different people, additional people. New family members who'd always been there, but whom I'd somehow missed on my first count. By the time I got back to the Old Dutch Mill Motel at 8 p.m., I had a problem. This morning, 47 people in 3 blocks. This afternoon, 73 people in the same 3 blocks. This evening, 94 people in the same 3 blocks. The count was increasing, every time I looked. I spread my notes out on the motel room bed, tried to make sense of it. Maybe I was just bad at this. Maybe I was missing people, missing houses, not being thorough enough. The Census Bureau trained enumerators carefully, but maybe I'd missed something in training. But I'd been careful, methodical. I'd gone to every house, knocked on every door, recorded every resident. So, where were these additional people coming from? I called Linda Chen, my supervisor. Got her voicemail. Left a message. "Linda, this is David. I'm in Smith Center, having some issues with the count. Numbers aren't adding up. Can you call me back?" She didn't call back that night. The next morning, April 17th, I started fresh, decided to begin a new section of town, the blocks south of Main Street, completely separate from yesterday's area. That way, I could see if the problem was specific to certain blocks or if it was town-wide. I started at 9 a.m., working methodically down South Main Street. By noon, I'd covered 4 blocks, counted 62 people, took a break for lunch, same diner. Emma, the waitress, smiled when she saw me. "How's it going?" she asked. "Complicated," I said. "The numbers are a bit higher than expected." "Well, Smith Center is growing," Emma said. "More people moving in all the time. It's a great place to raise a family." After lunch, I went back to the blocks I'd covered that morning. Wanted to verify my count was accurate. By 5 p.m., the 4 blocks I'd counted as 62 people now showed 91 people, 29 additional residents in 5 hours. I started asking questions, knocking on doors, asking people, "Were you home this morning? Did I miss you on my first pass?" Everyone said yes. Everyone claimed they'd been home all day. Everyone seemed confused about why I'd missed them the first time. A woman named Sarah Chen on South Commercial Street looked at me with genuine concern. "Are you feeling okay? You look stressed. This job must be hard, going door to door all day." "I'm fine," I said. "Just trying to make sure I get an accurate count." "We appreciate that," Sarah said. "It's important work. Making sure everyone gets counted. Making sure no one gets missed." But I wasn't missing people. People were appearing, being added to the population between my morning count and my evening recount. That night, I tried calling Linda again. Still no answer. Left another message, more urgent this time. Tried to sleep, but couldn't. Kept thinking about the numbers, about the houses that weren't there in the morning but were there in the afternoon, about the family members who didn't exist on first count but absolutely existed on second count. Around 2 a.m., I got up and drove through Smith Center. Just to see. Just to count. I drove slowly down Main Street, counting lit windows, counting houses that looked occupied versus houses that looked empty. At 2 a.m., Smith Center should have been asleep. Maybe a few lights on here and there, mostly dark. But every house I passed had lights on, every single house. And in the windows, I could see people, moving around, active, awake. At 2 a.m. on a weeknight in rural Kansas, I pulled over, got out of my car, listened. I could hear voices, conversations, laughter, coming from every house, dozens of houses, hundreds of people, all awake, all active in the middle of the night. I walked up to a house, a random house on a random street, looked in the window. Inside was a family. Parents, kids, grandparents, all sitting in the living room, all staring straight ahead at nothing. Not watching TV, not reading, just sitting, staring. And then, as if choreographed, they all turned their heads at the same time, looked directly at me, smiled. I ran back to my car, drove back to the motel, locked the door. Spent the rest of the night sitting on the bed with the lights on, reviewing my notes, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I was going to count the entire town, every resident, every house, all at once. Do it in a single day so the numbers couldn't change between morning and evening. Get a definitive count. And then I was going to call the Census Bureau and tell them something was very wrong with Smith Center, Kansas. April 18th, 2010. I started at 6 a.m., before most people would be awake. My plan was to do a complete census of Smith Center in a single day. Count every person, every house, work continuously until I had a definitive number that couldn't change. I'd divided the town into sections on my map. If I worked fast, if I didn't take breaks, if I stayed focused, I could cover everything by midnight. I started in the northeast quadrant. Residential area, older homes, the kind that had been there since the 1940s. I went door to door, moving quickly but staying thorough. At each house, I recorded every resident, then immediately moved to the next. By 10 a.m., I'd covered the northeast quadrant completely. Population count, 2,847 people. That was already wrong. The entire town was supposed to have 1,665 people according to the 2000 census. I'd just counted over 2,800 in less than a quarter of the town. But I kept going. Southeast quadrant next. More residential. Some newer construction from the 1980s and 90s. Same methodology. Knock, count, record, move. By 2 p.m., southeast quadrant complete. Additional 3,124 people. Running total, 5,971 people. I was starting to understand the scope of what I was seeing. This wasn't just a few extra people being added between counts. This was... I didn't know what this was. I grabbed food from a gas station, didn't want to stop long enough for a sit-down meal, and kept working. Southwest quadrant, then northwest, house by house, block by block. Every resident recorded. By 8 p.m., I'd covered 3/4 of the town. Running total, 11,203 people. 11,000 people. In a town that officially had 1,665. I was exhausted. My hands were cramping from writing. My feet ached from walking. But I kept going, had to finish. Had to get a complete count. The last quadrant, Northwest Smith Center, the area near the high school and the town cemetery, I finished at 11:47 p.m. Knocked on the last door, counted the last resident, recorded the final number. Total population of Smith Center, Kansas, as counted by me in a single day on April 18, 2010, 15,847 people. I sat in my car in front of the last house, staring at the number I'd written. 15,847. That was impossible. The entire county of Smith County only had about 4,000 people according to the 2000 census. The town itself was supposed to have 1,665. I'd just counted nearly 16,000 people in a town that physically couldn't hold that many. I'd walked every street, seen the size of Smith Center. It was a small town, maybe 2 miles by 2 miles. Residential homes, mostly single family. A few apartment buildings, but not many. There was no way this town had 16,000 people. But I'd counted them, talked to them, recorded their names, ages, demographics. They were real. They existed. Or at least they existed when I counted them. I drove back to the old Dutch Mill Motel. Harold was at the desk reading a newspaper. He looked up when I came in. "Long day?" he asked. "Very long," I said. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," Harold said. "How many people live in Smith Center?" Harold thought for a moment. "Oh, around 1,700 or so. Give or take. We're a small town. Everyone knows everyone." 1,700, I repeated. "That's right. Why do you ask?" "Just trying to get a sense of the count," I said, making sure my numbers are accurate. "Well, you won't find more than 2,000 people here," Harold said with certainty. "We're stable. Don't grow much. Don't shrink much. Smith Center's been about the same size for 30 years. I thanked him and went to my room. Spread out all my data from the day. 16,000 names, 16,000 people, all recorded systematically, all verified by direct contact. But Harold, a lifelong resident, thought the town had 1,700 people. I checked my phone. Finally had a voicemail from Linda Chen. David, got your messages. I'm not sure what issues you're experiencing, but Smith Center is a straightforward assignment. If you're having problems with the count, just do your best. Census data doesn't have to be perfect, just reasonably accurate. Call me if you need guidance. Reasonably accurate. I just counted 16,000 people in a town that was supposed to have 1,600. I tried calling her back. Got voicemail again. Linda, this is David. I completed a full count of Smith Center today. The numbers, they're not right. I'm showing over 15,000 people. That's 10 times what the town should have. I think there's something wrong here, something really wrong. I need you to send someone else to verify my count. Please call me back. I hung up, sat on the bed, tried to think rationally about what I was experiencing. Option 1, I was counting wrong, somehow massively inflating the numbers, double counting, recording people who didn't exist. But I'd been careful. I'd recorded names, addresses, physical descriptions. I'd seen these people, talked to them. They were real. Option 2, the town was actually much larger than official records indicated. Maybe there'd been a massive population boom since 2000 that hadn't been documented. But Harold thought the population was 1,700. And looking at the physical size of Smith Center, it couldn't hold 16,000 people. The infrastructure wasn't there. Not enough houses, not enough resources, not enough space. Option 3. Something impossible was happening. Something that didn't follow normal rules. Something I didn't understand. I was starting to think option 3 was the only one that made sense. April 19th, I decided to do something different. I was going to count the town again, but this time I was going to pay attention to who I could see versus who I couldn't. I started at the Morrison house on East Court Street. Patricia answered the door, smiled when she saw me. "You again," she said warmly. "Don't you have enough information on us by now?" "I need to verify some data," I said. "How many people live in this house?" "Just me and Tom," Patricia said. "What about Michael?" I asked. "Your son?" Patricia looked confused for just a moment, then smiled again. "Oh, Michael. Yes, of course. He's away at college." "Is he home right now?" I asked. "No, he's at school. Won't be back until summer. But 2 days ago, I'd counted Michael. He'd been here. He'd come downstairs and talked to me." "Can I come in for a moment?" I asked. Patricia hesitated, then nodded. "Sure, I suppose." I stepped inside, looked around. In the living room, I could see Tom Morrison sitting in a chair, reading the newspaper. He waved at me. And on the couch, I could see 3 other people. An older couple and a teenage girl. They were just sitting there, watching TV. "Who are they?" I asked Patricia, pointing at the couch. Patricia followed my gaze. "Who are who?" "The 3 people on your couch." Patricia looked at the couch, looked back at me. "There's no one on the couch. Are you feeling all right?" I stared at the 3 people. They were right there, clear as day. The older man was wearing a cardigan. The woman had gray hair. The teenage girl was playing on her phone. "You don't see them?" I asked. "David," Patricia said gently, "there's no one there." "It's just me and Tom in this house. Maybe you've been working too hard. This job can be stressful." I pulled out my notes from 2 days ago. On April 17th, I recorded 5 people living in this house. You, Tom, Michael, and 2 others. Robert Morrison, age 73, and Linda Morrison, age 71. Your parents, you told me. Patricia's face went blank. Then she smiled again, but it looked forced. "You must have written that wrong." "My parents don't live here. They passed away years ago." "But I talked to them," I said. They were sitting right where those 3 people are sitting now. "There's no one there," Patricia repeated. "I think you should go. Maybe rest for a while." I left the Morrison house, stood on the sidewalk looking back. Through the window, I could see the 3 people on the couch. Could see them clearly. They were real. They were there. But Patricia couldn't see them, or wouldn't admit she could see them. I walked down the street. Every house I passed, I could see people in windows, people in yards, people standing on porches. Some of them were people I'd counted during official census work. They waved at me, recognized me. But others were people I'd only seen during my extended counts. People who appeared when I looked carefully. People who existed in the spaces between. I tried an experiment. Walked up to a house where I could see a family of 4 in the living room. Knocked on the door. A woman answered, alone. "Census Bureau," I said. "How many people live here?" "Just me," the woman said. "I'm Susan Martinez." Live alone since my husband died. But through the doorway behind her, I could see 3 other people. A man, 2 children, all sitting in the living room, all clearly present. "Are you sure?" I asked. Susan followed my gaze. Looked directly at the 3 people in her living room. "Yes, I'm sure." "It's just me. Is there a problem?" She was looking right at them, had to be seeing them, but she said she lived alone. "No problem," I said. "Thank you for your time." I backed away. Susan closed the door. And through the window, I could see all 4 of them. Susan and the 3 invisible people. Standing in the living room, looking out at me. That's when I understood. The extra people weren't invisible to everyone. They existed. They were real, but only I could count them. Only I could acknowledge their presence. Everyone else in Smith Center either couldn't see them or had been trained not to see them. I was counting people who weren't supposed to be counted. I went back to the motel. Harold wasn't at the desk. I went to my room, locked the door, and called Linda Chen again. This time she answered. "David, I got your message about the 15,000 people. That's clearly an error. Smith Center's population is around 1,700. You've made a counting mistake somewhere." "Linda, I didn't make a mistake," I said. "I counted carefully. There are thousands of people here that aren't being counted by anyone else. I can see them, but the residents can't or won't." There was a long pause. "David, have you been getting enough sleep? Sometimes, when enumerators work too hard, they start seeing patterns that aren't there." "I'm not making this up," I said. "There's something wrong with this town. The population is much larger than official records, and I think I'm the only person who can see it." "David," Linda said carefully, "I'm going to send another enumerator to Smith Center. Someone to work with you, verify your counts. Would that help?" "Yes," I said. "Yes, please send someone. They need to see this." "I'll send Marcus Williams. He's one of our most experienced enumerators. He'll be there tomorrow morning. In the meantime, I want you to take the rest of today off. Rest. Don't do any more counting. Just relax." I agreed, but I had no intention of resting. I was going to figure out what was happening. I spent the afternoon at the Smith County Historical Society, housed in a small building near the courthouse. A woman named Margaret Henderson ran it. Elderly, friendly, clearly passionate about local history. "What brings you here?" she asked when I came in. "I'm working on the census," I said. "Trying to get background on Smith Center. Historical population data, that kind of thing." "Oh, wonderful," Margaret said. "We have records going back to the town's founding in 1872. What period are you interested in?" "All of it," I said. particularly any unusual population changes. Margaret pulled out several ledgers, handwritten records, census data from decades past, newspaper clippings. We spread them out on a table. What I found was consistent. Smith Center had always been small, founded in 1872 with about 300 people, grew to 2,000 by 1900, peaked at around 2,200 in the 1950s, declined to 1,665 by 2000. Stable, predictable, no sudden population booms, no unexplained growth. Has anything unusual ever happened in Smith Center? I asked Margaret. Anything that might explain discrepancies in population counts? Margaret thought for a moment. Well, there was the hospital incident in 1953. What incident? Smith Center had a hospital back then, a small place, just 20 beds. In July 1953, there was a fire. 3 patients died. But the strange thing was, when they went through the hospital records afterward, they found records for patients who didn't exist. Names of people who'd supposedly been treated there, but no one in town had heard of them. The hospital administrator at the time thought it was a clerical error. Old records from before somehow mixed in. What happened to those records? I asked. They were destroyed in the fire, Margaret said. But I have copies of the newspaper articles about it. Let me find them. She pulled out a folder of old newspaper clippings from 1953. I read through them. The Smith Center Gazette had run a series of articles about the hospital fire and the mysterious patient records. Names like John Anderson and Mary Phillips, who'd supposedly been treated at the hospital but whom no one could remember. Phantom patients, one article called them. The hospital never reopened. The building was demolished in 1954. Where was the hospital located? I asked. Margaret showed me on a map. The old hospital site was now a residential neighborhood, right in the area where I'd counted over 3,000 people yesterday. Marcus Williams arrived on the morning of April 20th. He was in his 40s, professional, experienced. The kind of enumerator who'd done this for 20 years and knew every trick, every shortcut, every way to get accurate data. Linda had sent him to verify my count, to prove I was wrong about the 16,000 people. Let's start fresh, Marcus said. Show me your methodology. We'll count together, see where the discrepancy is. We started in the northeast quadrant, the same area I'd started with days ago. Marcus went door to door. I followed behind him, watched him count. At the first house, Marcus recorded 2 people. I could see 4. At the second house, Marcus recorded 1 person. I could see 6. At the third house, Marcus recorded a family of 3. I could see 8 people inside. By noon, Marcus had counted 127 people in the northeast quadrant. I had counted 2,912. We sat in his car, comparing notes. You're overcounting, Marcus said bluntly. You're seeing people who aren't there. Maybe stress, maybe exhaustion, but you're adding phantom residents to your count. Let me show you something, I said. I got out of the car, walked to a house we'd just visited. A house where Marcus had counted 2 people, a married couple with no children. I could see 8 people through the living room window. I knocked. The wife answered. How many people live here? I asked. Just me and my husband, she said. Not your 3 children? I asked. And your parents who live in the basement apartment? The woman's face went blank. Then she smiled. We don't have children. And there's no basement apartment. I think you're confused. But through the doorway behind her, I could see them. All 6 additional people standing in the living room looking at me. Marcus came up behind me. What are you doing? Look in the living room, I said. Tell me what you see. Marcus looked. I see a living room, couch, TV, coffee table, normal living room. You don't see the 6 people standing there. Marcus looked at me with concern. David, there's no one in there except the woman we're talking to. I stared at the 6 people. They stared back at me, and then slowly they all smiled. The same smile. All 6 of them. Synchronized. I need to go, I said to Marcus. Walked back to my car. Marcus followed me. David, I think you need to stop working. Go home, get some rest. I'll finish the census here. How many people did you count today? I asked. 127 in the northeast quadrant, Marcus said. And the official 2000 census showed how many for that area. Marcus checked his notes. About 115. So there's been a small increase, about 10%. That's normal growth over 10 years. I counted 2,912, I said. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder. David, you need help. Whatever you're experiencing, it's not real. These phantom people you're seeing, they don't exist. I think the stress of this job has gotten to you. But they did exist. I could see them. I could count them. They were real. I just seemed to be the only person who could acknowledge they were real. Marcus finished the census of Smith Center by April 22nd. His final count, 1,823 people. An increase of 158 people since 2000. Normal growth. Perfectly reasonable. Nothing unusual. The Census Bureau accepted his count, filed it away. Smith Center, Kansas, population 1,823, official, verified, done. I was put on administrative leave. For health reasons, Linda said when she called me. We think you need to take some time off, rest, see a doctor. The census can be stressful work, especially for new enumerators. There's no shame in needing a break. I was supposed to leave Smith Center, go home to Topeka, stop working, stop counting, but I couldn't leave. Not without understanding what I'd seen. Not without knowing what the 16,000 people were. I stayed at the old Dutch Mill Motel. Paid for my room myself since the Bureau wouldn't cover it anymore. Harold seemed pleased to have a long-term guest. Decided to stay a while, he asked. I'm doing some independent research, I said. Well, Smith Center's a nice place to spend time. Friendly people. Good community. How long have you lived here, Harold? I asked. All my life, Harold said. Born here in 1943. Never wanted to leave. Have you noticed anything unusual about the town? About the people? Harold thought about it. Can't say I have. Smith Center's pretty normal. Why do you ask? Just curious, I said. Trying to understand the place. That night, I drove through Smith Center again. It was 2 a.m., and just like before, every house had lights on. Every house had people visible in the windows. Thousands of people, awake, active in the middle of the night. I parked in front of a random house. Watched through the living room window. Inside was a family. Parents, 3 children, grandparents. 8 people total. All sitting in the living room facing forward, not moving, just sitting, staring. And then, as I watched, one of the children turned and looked directly at me, made eye contact, mouthed words I could read even through the glass. Count me. The next morning, I went back to the Smith County Historical Society. Margaret Henderson greeted me warmly. Back for more research? She asked. I need to know more about the phantom patients, I said. The ones from the 1953 hospital fire. Margaret pulled out the same folder of newspaper clippings. I read through them more carefully this time. The hospital had kept detailed records of every patient admitted. Names, dates, treatments. But after the fire, when the administrators tried to reconcile their records with the town's memory, they found dozens of patients no one remembered, names that appeared in the ledgers but that no one in Smith Center had heard of. John Anderson, Mary Phillips, Robert Taylor, Sarah Martinez, dozens more. The newspaper had interviewed several Smith Center residents about these phantom patients. Every interview was the same. Never heard of them. Don't know anyone by that name. Must be a clerical error. But the records were detailed. Admission dates, diagnoses, treatment plans, discharge dates. These weren't clerical errors. These were real patients who'd been treated at a real hospital. Patients that no one in Smith Center could remember. "Margaret," I said, "do you remember any of these names?" She put on her reading glasses and looked at the list. "No," she said slowly, "I don't. And I know everyone in Smith Center, have for 70 years, but I don't recognize any of these names." "What if they were real?" I asked. "What if these people actually existed, but everyone in town just couldn't see them, couldn't acknowledge them?" Margaret gave me a concerned look. "That doesn't make sense. How could people exist if no one can see them?" "I don't know," I said, "but I think it's happening. I think Smith Center has a population that exists outside of official counts. People who are here, who are real, but who only certain people can see." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "There's an old story," she said finally. "My grandmother used to tell it. About the first settlers who came to this area in the 1800s. They found evidence of previous inhabitants, structures, tools, fire pits, but no people. The Native Americans in the area said the land was occupied, but that the occupants couldn't be seen. Said they were people who'd chosen to step outside the count, to exist without being counted. My grandmother said it was just superstition, old frontier stories." "But what if it wasn't superstition?" I asked. "Then I suppose Smith Center has been home to two populations for a very long time," Margaret said. "The counted and the uncounted." I spent the next week documenting everything. Took photos of the houses where I could see uncounted people, recorded names and faces, built a database of the uncounted residents of Smith Center. By the end of the week, my count of uncounted people had reached 23,847. 23,000 people living in Smith Center who didn't appear in any official records, who couldn't be seen by most residents, who existed in the spaces between. I tried to make contact with them, knocked on doors where I could see uncounted families. But when the door opened, only counted residents answered. The uncounted remained inside, visible through windows but unreachable. Except they kept trying to communicate with me. Through gestures, through written signs they held up in windows, through mouthed words. Count me. See me. Acknowledge me. They wanted to be recognized, wanted to be part of the official record, wanted someone to confirm they existed, and I was the only person who could. On April 29th, I woke up to find an envelope slipped under my motel room door. Inside was a handwritten note. "Mr. Park, we need to speak with you. Come to the old hospital site at midnight tonight. Come alone. The uncounted." I spent the day trying to decide if I should go. This could be dangerous, could be a trap. But it was also the first direct communication I'd received from the uncounted population. At 11:45 p.m., I drove to the old hospital site. It was a residential neighborhood now. Houses built in the 1950s and 60s where the hospital had once stood. I parked on the street, got out, waited. At exactly midnight, the houses around me went dark. All at once. Every light in every house extinguished simultaneously. And then they appeared, the uncounted. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, emerging from the houses, walking into the street, surrounding me. All ages, all backgrounds, men, women, children, elderly. A massive crowd of people who shouldn't exist. A woman stepped forward, middle-aged, wearing clothes that looked like they were from the 1950s. "Mr. Park," she said, "thank you for coming." "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Dorothy Anderson," she said. "I was one of the phantom patients from the 1953 hospital fire. I was here, I was treated, I existed. But when the hospital burned and the records were examined, no one in Smith Center could remember me. I had become uncounted." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we exist outside the official record," Dorothy said. "We're not in the census. Not in birth certificates or death certificates. Not in tax records or voting rolls. We live here in Smith Center, but we're invisible to the counted population. Invisible to everyone except certain people. People like you." "Why me?" I asked. "Why can I see you when others can't?" "Because you're a counter," Dorothy said. "Your job is to count everyone, to see everyone, to record everyone. That intention, that purpose, allows you to perceive us. Most people in Smith Center have learned not to see us, have trained themselves to ignore us, to not acknowledge our existence. But you can't ignore us. Your job won't let you." I looked at the crowd of uncounted people surrounding me. Thousands of them, all silent, all watching me. "How many of you are there?" I asked. "In Smith Center, about 24,000, Dorothy said. "But we exist in other places too. Small towns across America. Places where populations have learned to not see certain residents. We're the uncounted, the people who exist in the margins, the ones who fell through the cracks of bureaucracy and never climbed back out." "Why do you stay here?" I asked. "Why not leave?" "Go somewhere you can be counted." "Because we can't," Dorothy said. "Once you become uncounted, you're tied to the place where it happened. We're bound to Smith Center. This is the only place we can exist. If we leave, we don't go somewhere else. We just stop, cease to be." "What do you want from me?" I asked. "We want to be counted," Dorothy said. "We want someone to acknowledge we exist, to put us in the official record. You counted us, Mr. Park. You saw us, you recorded our names. That's the first time in decades that anyone has done that. We're grateful. But the Census Bureau rejected your count. They said we don't exist. They took us out of the record again." "I can't make them believe me," I said. "They think I made a mistake. They think I'm seeing things that aren't there." "We know," Dorothy said. "That's why we have a proposition for you." She gestured, and another uncounted person stepped forward. A young man, maybe my age, holding a small device that looked like an old camera. "Stay with us," Dorothy said. "Become uncounted. Join our population. Live here in Smith Center, outside the official record. You'll be able to see us, interact with us, be part of our community. And we'll have someone who can tell our story, who can document our existence." "If I do that," I said, "if I become uncounted, I won't be able to interact with the counted population anymore, will I?" "No," Dorothy admitted. "You'll become like us. Visible to other uncounted people, invisible to everyone else. You'll exist here, but you won't exist in any official capacity. No social security number, no driver's license, no records. You'll be a ghost." "Why would I choose that?" I asked. "Because you already know you can't go back," Dorothy said. "You've seen too much. You understand what we are. If you leave Smith Center, if you try to tell people about us, they'll think you're insane. They'll dismiss you, maybe commit you. You'll spend the rest of your life trying to convince people that uncounted populations exist, and no one will believe you. But if you stay here, if you join us, you can actually help us. Document us. Make sure someone remembers we existed." I looked at the thousands of uncounted people surrounding me, all of them waiting for my decision, all of them hoping I'd say yes. "Can I think about it?" I asked. "You have until dawn," Dorothy said. "After that, the opportunity closes. You either stay with us or you leave Smith Center and never come back. Those are your only options." The crowd dispersed. The uncounted faded back into the houses. The lights came back on, and I was alone in the street, trying to decide if I wanted to exist or if I wanted to be counted. I drove back to the old Dutch Mill Motel, sat in my car in the parking lot watching the sun come up over Smith Center. If I left, I'd go back to my life. Go back to being counted. Have a social security number, a driver's license, a legal existence. But I'd also spend the rest of my life knowing about the uncounted. Knowing there were tens of thousands of people in America who existed outside official records. And no one would believe me. If I stayed, I'd become one of them, lose my official existence. But I'd be able to help them, document them, make sure their story was preserved, even if no one else could see them. It wasn't really a choice. I'd already decided the moment Dorothy made the offer. I went into the motel. Harold was at the desk. "Checking out?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'm staying." "How long?" "Permanently." Harold smiled. It was a strange smile. Knowing. "Welcome home, David," he said. That was 15 years ago. I'm still in Smith Center, still uncounted. I exist here in this small town in Kansas along with 24,000 other uncounted residents. We live parallel to the counted population, share the same space but exist in different registers of reality. The counted population of Smith Center thinks they live in a town of 1,800 people. They see their neighbors, their friends, their family. Everything seems normal to them. But there are 24,000 of us they don't see. 24,000 people living in the same houses, walking the same streets, existing in the spaces between official recognition. I've documented all of us. Names, faces, stories. I maintain the unofficial census of the uncounted population of Smith Center. And I've connected with uncounted populations in other towns across America. We're everywhere. In small towns and big cities, existing outside the record, invisible to most people. The 2020 census came through Smith Center, a new enumerator, fresh out of college, eager to do good work. I watched her from my uncounted existence as she went door to door, counting the counted population. She recorded 1,891 people, a small increase from 2010, normal growth, nothing unusual. She didn't see any of us, didn't count the 24,000 uncounted residents, didn't notice the discrepancy between the physical size of the town and the official population. She finished her work in 5 days and left. Probably never thought about Smith Center again. But here's the thing. Every few years, someone like me shows up. Someone whose job requires them to count everyone. Someone who sees us. Someone who tries to put us in the official record. And every time, the Census Bureau dismisses their count, calls it a mistake, sends someone else to verify. The verified count never includes us. We remain uncounted. Sometimes these counters leave, go back to their lives, gradually convince themselves they imagined us. Sometimes they stay, become uncounted like me, join our population. There are 12 of us in Smith Center now. 12 former census enumerators who chose to stay with the uncounted rather than return to a counted existence. We maintain the records. We document the population. We make sure someone remembers we exist. even if we don't officially exist, even if we're not in the census, even if no one can see us except other uncounted people. We're here. We're real. We exist. We just exist in the spaces between the numbers. If you're reading this, if you've heard my story, you might be wondering, could this happen to you? Could you become uncounted? The answer is yes. It happens more often than you think. When official records lose track of you, when bureaucracy fails to acknowledge your existence, when you fall through the administrative cracks and can't climb back out, most people don't notice they're becoming uncounted until it's too late, until they've already faded from official existence, until they're living in the spaces between. If you're a census worker, if your job involves counting people, you might be able to see us. Might notice the discrepancy between official counts and actual populations. Might realize that towns across America have shadow populations living parallel to the counted residents. And if you do see us, you'll have a choice. The same choice I had. Go back to your counted existence and spend your life trying to convince people we're real. Or stay with us. Become uncounted. Help us document our existence. It's not an easy choice, but it's a choice you'll have to make. Because once you've seen the uncounted, you can't unsee them. And they'll be waiting for your answer. In small towns across America, in the spaces between the numbers, in the populations that don't officially exist, we're here.